Is India's fintech revolution real? I'd like to call upon the stage Professor Bhagwan Chowdhry and Miss Praveena Rai. Please welcome them with a loud round of applause. In India's business landscape, in the country's fintech revolution, truly a real deal? Powered by cutting-edge startups, rapid digital adoption, and some of the world's most innovative payment systems, India's fintech wave is changing how millions manage money, borrow, and invest. Get ready to dive into the future of finance and see if the revolution lives up to the hype. So, first up, we have the faculty director at ISB and author of Fintech, a man whose work shaped conversations around financial inclusion and impact finance. Professor Bhagwan Chowdhry, everyone.
And joining him on stage is a leader who has played a big role in changing India's financial world. Ms. Praveena Rai is the MD and CEO of Multi-Commodity Exchange of India, where she helps shape how people trade and invest in commodities. Before this, she was the COO at the National Payments Corporation of India, where she helped build the digital payment systems that millions of people use every day. Let's give them a huge round of applause as they explore Thank you.
Hi, Professor Bhagwan. Lovely to be here with you, and wonderful to have read your book, Fintech for Billions. I've usually seen this entire landscape from the other side, which is really trying to create systems of scale that can have access for the billion plus people that we're talking about. But you've really painstakingly gone and actually spoken to a number of individuals. You've looked at people across the spectrum, and then you've really charted out many stories from which specific problem statements have emanated. I really look at this as both the digital opportunity, because digital creates a level playing field. I've really seen digital as being highly empowering, being part of hearing stories about how people who earlier did not have access to certain goods and services are today able to buy them from anywhere in the country. They don't have to travel from a village to a town to, get a piece of jeans or, whatever it is they want. Similarly, merchants are able to sell to anywhere in the country, no matter whether they are in the remote part of the country here. And many such stories, and we'll talk about a few of them as we move along. So out of all your experience, what is the story that really touched you most deeply?
Okay. There were many stories that touched me. So let me say this. India is a big country, okay? Almost everything you can think about, we've got the numbers. So when you look at any story, you can say it's a story of glass half full or half empty. Same is true of the fintech revolution. It's a story of glass half full, or you can say a story of glass half empty. But it is a really big glass. So what is missing is a lot, but what has happened is a lot too. So yes, a lot has happened, and people who visit India are surprised to see how much digitization has actually happened. People who visit me from the US, I lived in the US for many years. I'm able to make transactions instantly to my friends and merchants that my friends are not able to do even now in the United States. So clearly that has happened. But yet at the same time, we can't be carried away with it and say, oh, looks like everybody has access. Everybody does not have access. and we get misled by statistics. We start with a story of Lakshmi in our book, and if you look at the statistic, she checks all the boxes. She has a mobile phone, she has an Aadhaar number, and she has a bank account. So anybody who will go on television will say she has financial access, but she doesn't. When I ask her, can I pay you for your salary digitally, she says no. Why? Because she doesn't trust it. She wants cash. Why? Because she says, as soon as I step out of the campus, I live on ISB campus, I want to know that the person I'm buying fruits from is also able to accept a digital payment or not. So these solutions have to be pretty much ubiquitous, and they are not. They are there in some pockets, you see it everywhere, but then you go to regions and it's nowhere. And that creates this kind of a fragility that we don't often pay attention to. So that's why we were induced to write this book, that I'm an academic, so I look at data, and when I look at data, things look fine, but when we started going on the ground, we saw that there were a lot of trouble. I listened to a minister who said, anybody can open a bank account in 5 minutes. And my co-author tried to open a bank account for her maid, and it took him weeks. So the reality is really different from what is being portrayed in, and that's what this book is about. That yes, the digital revolution is here, but it needs to go a long way before we can claim victory.
Yeah, no, that's so true. That's so true. It is a big glass, and probably people like me who are on the building this and filling up this glass side of things, like to see the full part of the glass, and that kind of keeps everyone motivated to continue to keep doing more of the same, because this journey is not going to get over. It's certainly not over, and it's not going to get over soon. And 2 incidents come to my mind as anecdotes, which really were very inspiring for me. One was, we did a study with merchants some time back, and this study really was to say, hey, you've now got this QR, and does this make any difference to your life? Because many years back, when I used to just go and meet merchants, they would have the QR in the drawer of their shop, and then if you ask for it, they'll pull it out. Now, today, they all have about 3-4 QRs each. He said, yeah, because earlier I would serve the customer, and the customer would then make the payment. I'd wait, I'll take the cash, I'll give the change, and then I'll have to move on to my next customer. Today, once I've serviced the customer, I'm on to my next, and he does the QR, and I can hear the voice confirmation, and I know it's done. So he was verbalizing, a small shopkeeper in a fairly remote part of the country, that he's doubled his productivity, and he's really getting more of the time that he's spending at the shop. So that was really super inspiring. When we talk of trust, and your book does talk of digital Didis, the business correspondent model, which is again something the Reserve Bank of India put together. This really attempts to take people to that last mile.
But let me ask you, so this is very good, business correspondent. How many of you have ever met a business correspondent?
They shouldn't need to.
No, this is my point. It's not ubiquitous. Can I go out and see that here's a business correspondent? I can go to this shop and get things done. It's not there. We need to have those signs everywhere that you can come and do a transaction here. It has to be everywhere. I mean, take if you have traveled and you need to do foreign exchange, and if you're at a tourist spot, it's easy to spot foreign exchange, we transfer money here. Not the case with business correspondents. So what we suggested, if I may, is that we need to create this army of young women, I'm calling them digital Didis, who should be in a uniform everywhere, at a bus stand, in a shop, anywhere, that I should be able to approach a digital Didi and say, can you help me do these transactions? So I think we need to take this business correspondent, which sounds very official and formal, and make it a little bit informal. That's why I'm calling it digital Didi. Somebody I can relate to, somebody I can trust with, and say that, will you help me do this transaction? So I think the last mile still needs to happen.
No, I totally agree with you. Because when we talk of the digital opportunity also has this digital divide. I don't know whether to call it a divide or a chasm, right? People can fall into it and not cross the other side. So you need this bridge. And the industry has also been talking about this concept of phygital, right? Which is sort of what this digital Didi or business correspondent or Sati or, many forms of this are there, is really about providing that assisted journey towards digital. So yes, the person may take few years to really become fully self-sufficient digitally, but if they are assisted, they may need to be assisted for a long time, and some of them, once they're assisted a few times, sort of figure out, hey, how can I now start doing this? Human curiosity, ultimately creates that evolution, and then that journey starts becoming easier. And I think this is simple psychology. If you go back to the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, etc., that's what it talks about. So if you're not so comfortable walking into a branch, you're not so comfortable doing all of these things with your phone, then there is fear, there is sort of lack of trust, there is more than anything psychological discomfort.
Yeah.
And those need to get broken by introduction. And research also says that word of mouth is the biggest driver towards creating that trust.
So I think the best way, people talk about financial education. It's not going to happen with classes. It's going to happen by imitation, right? Once I see somebody do something like this, then I'm more likely to follow it. So if you're doing it, show it to your mate. Show it to the person who comes to work with you. That's how digital, use of cell phones. Nobody created classes for how to use a cell phone. People learn by imitation. And this is an aspirational product. But because it's money, people are a little bit more afraid. It's okay to go on my phone and watch a YouTube video, but ask the same person, send 500 rupees to your brother on this, they're going to be a little bit afraid. Ki paisa gaya ki nahi, usko pahuncha ki nahi pahuncha, right? So you need to send the money and you need to immediately call and say, paisa aaya ki nahi aaya. That thing is so important. So we need to go do the last piece. And
Yeah. And I think the other element is also, not just the core transaction. It's the pre of the transaction and the post of the transaction.
Absolutely,
and only when this is fulfilled end to end will that initial trial, experiment, etc., really build out into a trusted, repeated
and let
journey
me tell you, in this stuff, we all make mistakes. How many of you have booked an airline and instead of AM you put PM? And we all do it, right? The wrong date and this thing. And what happens when you call them back? Nothing, right? Now, imagine trying sending money and putting an extra zero or a wrong phone number. People are scared as hell. They don't want to do it, right? So you'll say, oh no, but there is a way to get your money back. How many of you have made a wrong transaction and tried to get your money back? Okay, what was your experience? You didn't get back. This is the problem. If I'm going to trust with my money, I need to be 100% sure that it is safe, it will reach, and if I make a mistake, there is a way to get redressal. And it's not enough to say there's an ombudsman. Who the heck knows what an ombudsman even means, RBI has this number. Even bankers are afraid of RBI, let alone common people. So I think it needs to be curated by other human beings. And when they can say, चिंता मत कीजिए, आपका पैसा गलत हो गया, मैं दिखाता हूँ आपको कैसे वापस आता है. Once we reach that level, then I think people will have that trust.
I think that's where competition also comes in, right? So, and this has happened everywhere in the world, including here. So, when that leg of customer service has a lot of friction, somebody comes and says, hey, I'm going to remove that friction for you, and then becomes the next big thing. And we've seen this in India now. 10 years back, would you have thought that you can keep buying clothes online and returning it at will? We do that today. Maybe people abuse it also. But yes, those models will evolve. And I think once the fundamental, foundational elements are there, that's the play that competition also should ideally bring in.
So, Praveena, can I say that?
Yeah.
I think digital revolution has made people who already had access even better. Their lives are better. But people who didn't have access are still struggling. That's my claim. So I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist. I came from LA, UCLA to here in 2011. I wrote a blog saying a digital revolution is imminent in India. I mean, I was so sure. Somebody took me to a local bank and they showed me how to open a 1 rupee bank account in State Bank of India. I don't know if you guys remember that. You could go. I was so impressed. And then I came back in 2015 and it still hadn't happened. And I said, financial inclusion is now imminent in India. It still didn't happen. In 2025, I'm still waiting. So I think these things take a lot of time. So
Yeah.
my optimism is a little bit vague.
A little bit damp now, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
हमारे राजस्थान में बोलते थे नाम बड़े और दर्शन छोटे, तो वो थोड़ा थोड़ा ऐसे लगता है कि we got too excited with this thing. Yeah.
A lot more work to be done. Yeah. But I think if we look at what's happening on with technology, and what you can do with technology, there was a session on AI some time back. So this whole burden of documentation, right? And I don't want to sound very boring, but there are reasons why banks need documentation and why they repeatedly ask for KYC and why they need to know you.
KYC, don't let me even go
Yeah, I
there.
know. I knew that must be a sweet spot for you.
Yeah. KYC is to make life difficult for all the people who can't do KYC. I mean, it's difficult for me. It took me a while to redo my KYC. I mean, and I'm okay. I'm pretty conversant with technology. So
Yeah.
forget my maid. There's no
Actually, I've let go a couple of cards and a bank account because I said I can't do KYC. So we're all there.
And now they are going to these merchants who were, this QR code for merchants was a true revolution, in my opinion. It was a true revolution. And I have to give it to folks at UPI and other people who made this happen. But now we are going there and saying, oh, we know you did this transaction, you have to pay taxes. I mean, come on. First go and get the taxes from doctors, okay? Who never report their income before we go to these poor people. What is wrong with us? Praveena, you answer that question.
Oh, no, that's not my remit.
This poor guy who's selling pani puri, we are giving them a bill and saying, you owe us 3 lakhs, and if not, you have to prove that you don't know. This is absolutely backwards. It's absolutely ridiculous. My view is, if you want to make these people access really meaningful to them, leave them alone. There are plenty of other big fish we can go after to collect their taxes. Don't go after these poor people.
Yeah. So, talking about this element of how this builds out, right? Because what I really like about for people, how it's being solved, sometimes it's transformational, like the merchant. Sometimes it's incremental, and an incremental example that comes to mind is somebody, instead of walking or traveling by bus, 10, 20 kilometers to a bank branch, feeling uncomfortable walking into the branch, probably somebody there not really looking at them as a valuable customer, and maybe not even getting their job done, as against going a kilometer or two to a BC I don't know if you've seen them here or not, but I think there are enough of them outside the cities. That, I think, has been a good increment. It's not yet transformative, it's a good increment. And 3 years back, I saw data which said that versus about 6 years back, when people would get, let's say, government benefits and just wipe out their account because they never felt confident that they can actually have access to that cash when they needed it. So they just walk out and say, "Kitna mila? Okay, 1,500 rupees, give it to me," right? And then it's gone. And then they're handling it in their box in their house. But 25% of the people were holding back balances. So they were saying, "I need only 300 rupees today, and I'll take the rest when I need it." So that sort of indicates, it's not 100, obviously zero's not got to 100, but 0 to 25, that there's a certain percentage who started to build trust in the system, in the accessibility, in the individual that they are connecting with, to the extent that they know they can have that access when they need it. So that, I thought, was a bit of a green shoot out there.
Yeah, but we also found evidence that when people approach banks or business correspondents, 2 out of the 3 times, they just want to know their bank balance. This is a true story. We did surveys. 2 out of the time, because when money gets transferred, maybe through DBT or something else, they just want to know ki paisa aaya ki nahi aaya. So they're making a trip just to find out. And you know what the poor business correspondent is doing? He doesn't want to spend time wasting money just telling you, because he makes zero money on that for bank balance. If you do a transaction, he or she does make money. So now we have to make it simple, right? And in fact, it is very simple. So if I ask you, all you need to do is call your bank, and they'll tell you what the. How many of you know what number to call for your bank to figure out what the bank balance is? Let me see a show of hands. 1. There you go. Praveena, we don't know. We don't know.
Why am I being targeted here?
Huh? What? Sorry?
Carry on.
So in our book, we suggest a very simple thing. We suggested that create a single number. Just like you have 100 for police, 101 for fire, we should create a number called 222. Bank balance batao, BBB. You dial 222, you don't have to say anything. You'll get a call back and it'll say, "Aapke bank mein 5,620 rupees." That's all you need to do. You saved this poor guy 1 kilometer of walk to the bank just to find out the bank balance. Okay? It's a very simple thing that can be done, right? 222, and because you're calling from your number, they already know which account you're talking about. Similarly, when I send money, I don't need to call my brother. I can just send money. Call 222, I'll know 1,000 rupees have been deducted. My brother calls me, he gets a bank account, he will know that 1,000. We need those simple solutions. So our book is called Simple, Human, and Ubiquitous. The short SHUB, SHUB. So we need to have the SHUB version of a fintech solution.
Yeah, I did think the 222 was a very good idea. It's something that that along with voice, right, given where we are on literacy and various things. But I just want to take it back to the fact that once people have gone beyond, I need to give money and take money, and they're willing to now keep money, they should then move them into that full inclusion cycle.
I agree, yeah.
And that inclusion cycle is, how do I save some money? How do I get some insurance? How do I have that rainy day sort of medical incident cover or life insurance? And how can I also, make some money? Because, you'll be surprised that until that, and usually it is a medical event. And I saw that in your book as well. It sort of confirmed this for me, that it's always a medical event that takes somebody from a good sort of reasonable financial position into zero or negative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
this is true everywhere.
Yep.
including the US. Medical emergency is the number one reason why people go broke in some sense. And that's where they go to a money lender usually, because when you need the money, there's no bank willing to lend to you at that time, and the money lender is there for. So despite all the bad things we say about money lenders, they are actually the only help you have available at time.
Yeah, but we do need to solve for these elements. We need to solve for, I think in the good old days of our youth, when a simple recurring deposit was there, I don't know why banks, do they still offer recurring deposit? So there need to be a lot of opportunity to keep that money back, get that insurance, get that money to earn something. And where I was going with that is to say that as long as that sort of big hit on your financial doesn't happen, people do have some money. And they should be able to invest that money, accumulate that money, and everybody knows it, that if you put 100 rupees and you're able to even put, let's say, 50 rupees every month, and that cumulative effect is going to be much better than if that were to just be sitting idle.
And you and I benefit from it. I mean, I hardly carry cash with me now because of UPI and other things. So all my cash is actually earning money, but not my maid. She has to carry cash with her, and that just seems downright unfair.
Yeah. So if we look at the numbers, I think in India, of course, there are some billion odd accounts. I think latest was, and by the way, the balances on these accounts with the banking system is not a very small number today. So there is a build-up happening in the ecosystem. We do have, however, when we look at people with any form of insurance, any sort of active investment. So when we look at investments, I think we talk of number of demat accounts and they go into a couple of crores. But the moment we start saying active investors, people who are covered, no number crosses 50 million. In fact, about 20, 30 million is sort of the sweet spot where all the credit, all the insurance, all the sort of investors are all sitting, right? Which is probably all of us here in this room. So expanding that base, I think, is sort of the story that you're talking about there.
And there are lots of fake accounts. And that is something that worries me. That there are a lot of fake accounts, there are people who are laundering money, and those are sitting on. That's partly the reason why we are seeing these aggregate numbers go up, but they put the money there and they take it out. And obviously there are no real people behind it. And AI is going to do wonderful things. I think it's going to be an equalizer. But AI is also going to increase fraud like you will not believe. Somebody told me yesterday that if you go on dark web, there is something called fraud GPT. Listen to this. There's something called fraud GPT, where they will tell you how to commit fraud using AI. I mean, we need to be ready for it. I mean, we cannot put our head in the sand and say nothing is going to happen. And we can't hide behind this thing. Every now and then I listen to some policy makers and they say, oh, only 2% fraud हो रहा है. यार, जो 2% fraud जिन लोगों के साथ हो रहा है, those are the people we need to protect. If fraud happens against us, we know how to get help, but these poor people don't know it. And I think that problem is going to become worse. So we need to be absolutely clear about it. And folks at UPI, your previous this thing, need to take this more seriously.
Yeah. No, I think AI is playing a lot of very powerful roles, including in identifying fraud models. So yes, it helps the other party, but I think it also should powerfully help the ecosystem. And it has a role to play when we're looking at simplifying, that whole documentation piece. I think we dropped the thread there. But when we talk of simplifying that sort of life cycle, it can play a very important role to simplify this complex thing. And AI, nothing is going to open up simplicity of interface and interaction like AI can. So converting documentation requirements to an interactive interface, I think we we will, I hope, see that fairly soon in days to
AI
come.
will also help with these things called terms and conditions. Do you guys know that all of you have given away your life already by signing those terms and conditions all the time? Who knows what's in those documents? Nobody reads them, you know. But I think with AI, they should be able to read terms and conditions and immediately warn us कि ये मत sign करना, इसमें गड़बड़ है. I think we can use AI very usefully for that.
You know, there are two kinds of people. There are some people like me, and I don't know, maybe you, who never sign that. I have downloaded apps and didn't set them up because I didn't want to sign that. But I know a lot of people who really don't care. Anyway, that's a different problem.
No, I have downloaded everything. So I know that anybody who asks me information, I always say go and ask the CIA or the CBI. They know everything about me already. In fact, they can provide, this is a startup idea, that when you go to fill a form, you should simply say, please call CBI, you know, or this is the number. They'll be able to fill out this form. I'm joking, okay.
Yeah. So I thought we'll talk about this whole micro transaction. And this links back to this financial cycle. And I like to think of this as financial cycle of freedom, right? Which allows this individual or the household to have this full opportunity of access to all the instruments. And I go back to UPI because there's something called a UPI autopay, which really permits a lot of micro transactions on a repetitive basis. So, for example, when I look at insurance, you know, you can do micro premiums.
Yeah.
Take ₹1 a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And the instrument for that is available today. If you look at credit, you know, have the ability not just to disburse small quantities, which I think you speak about, but to collect it back as and when funds are available. And of course, now I am with MCX, I'm on the capital market side with investments. And this is something close to my heart, that one could also do micro SIP. So you could just do,
I agree,
you know, invest in
100%.
mutual funds, and I guess a lot of people here would, even though they may not be comfortable buying a share or whatever. You can always participate in a SIP and leave the experts to do it. But today you need a substantive sum to do that. So this could really be a micro SIP, which creates small cumulative investments. And all of this, you know, can come together very nicely, which I think sort of covered in the last section of your book. I thought
So
was very
technology
powerful.
is a big enabler here because it makes the transaction cost close to zero, which allows you to aggregate these microtransactions and put them together and be able to do it. So I'm very hopeful that that's going to happen. And there's no reason why the people who are we done? Is that what you're telling me? Are you talking to me?
Yeah,
Yes?
she is. She is.
Are we done? Can I finish my sentence? आप बताइए ना? Okay. So I'm saying I agree with you, Praveena, 100%. If you were to ask me what is the number one financial sort of difficulty the poor people face, it's a lack of insurance. I think we relied on social insurance, bhai bhai ko help karega, and so on and so forth, a lot. But now we actually need market insurance because within family insurance, and we have made very little progress. And as you said, sub-emergency or a death of a earning member creates a big this thing. And I think that's where we need to see a lot of activity in addition to savings. Being able to save at rates of return that are decent. So maybe mutual funds and other things will allow us to do it, but we have to do it in a way that is safe. And I think that is our challenge. I'm
Yeah.
done.
So great ideas for all the disruptors sitting here. Yeah. If there are budding entrepreneurs, fintech founders, whatever have you. So all the very best, and thank you. That was a wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Praveena.
Yep.
Thank you.
I am blown with the discussion that we've just had. Of course, we need a digital Didi. Of course, we need a BBB. And of course, we need to pay our insurances in a micropay method. So I'm very thankful, both of you, to have the discussion with us. This was very insightful and, of course, very much needed. So, moving on, I would like to call upon Mr. Dilip Sharma to felicitate both our guests.
By the way, if you go